You know, people always ask me why I write with my right hand but eat with my left. Why I throw a ball with my right but deal cards with my left. They think it's quirky, maybe even charming. But there's nothing charming about having your natural instincts beaten out of you with a wooden ruler. My name is Robert McCarthy, and I'm 78 years old. For 70 years, I've carried a secret that still makes my stomach turn. Today, I'm finally ready to tell it. It was 1954 when my parents enrolled me at St. Margaret's Catholic School in South Boston. I was 8 years old, gap-toothed, and completely innocent about what awaited me behind those imposing brick walls. My mother had sewn my name into every shirt collar, packed my lunch with the crusts cut off my sandwich, and kissed my forehead before pushing me toward those heavy wooden doors. "Be good for Sister Mary Catherine," she whispered. "Mind your manners." If only she had known what being good would cost me. Sister Mary Catherine stood 6 feet tall in her black habit, her face sharp as broken glass beneath her white wimple. Her hands were massive. I swear they were bigger than my father's, and they always seemed to be reaching for that ruler, that damned wooden ruler that would haunt my dreams for decades to come. The first day of school, she had us practice writing our names. I picked up my pencil with my left hand, as naturally as breathing, and began forming the letters ROBRT in my careful 8-year-old script, CRACK. The ruler came down across my knuckles, so hard I saw stars. The pencil flew across the room, and I stared up at Sister Mary Catherine in shock, my hand throbbing with pain. "Left-handed children are marked by the devil," she announced to the entire class, her voice cold as winter stone. "We will not tolerate Satan's influence in this classroom." The other children stared at me like I'd grown horns. Some moved their desks away. Tommy Sullivan, who'd been my friend since kindergarten, wouldn't even look at me. "Pick up that pencil with your right hand, Robert McCarthy. God's hand, the righteous hand." My right hand shook as I tried to grip the pencil. The letters came out crooked, barely recognizable. She made me write my name 50 times that day, each attempt worse than the last. When I instinctively switched hands, muscle memory is a powerful thing, the ruler would strike again. By the time my mother picked me up, my knuckles were swollen and purple. But when she asked what happened, I couldn't tell her. Sister Mary Catherine had made it clear. Children who tattle about their righteous punishment will find themselves in even more trouble with the Lord. That was just the beginning. Every morning for the next 4 years, I would wake up with a knot in my stomach. My left hand would automatically reach for my toothbrush, and I'd have to consciously force myself to use my right. At breakfast, I'd catch myself holding my fork naturally, then quickly switch hands before my parents noticed and ask questions I couldn't answer. At school, Sister Mary Catherine watched me like a hawk. During penmanship practice, she would pace the rows of desks, that ruler tapping ominously against her palm. The sound still makes me flinch. "The left hand is the sinister hand," she would intone. Sinister, from the Latin word for left, the hand of evil, the hand that will drag you straight to hell. She had creative punishments beyond the ruler. When she caught me using my left hand to erase something, she made me kneel on dried corn kernels for an hour while holding my arms outstretched, crucifixion style. When I instinctively caught a falling book with my left hand, she tied my left arm to my side with rope and made me spend the entire day that way. The worst punishment came in October of 1954. I was drawing a picture of my family during art class, my parents, my little sister Mary, our dog Rusty. Without thinking, I picked up the red crayon with my left hand to color my father's shirt. Sister Mary Catherine appeared behind me like a shadow. "Stand up, Robert." My blood turned to ice. The entire class fell silent. "Show the class which hand you were using." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. "Show them the devil's hand." Trembling, I raised my left hand. Several children gasped. Mary O'Brien started crying. "This is what happens to children who refuse to abandon Satan's ways," Sister Mary Catherine announced. She grabbed my left wrist with one of those massive hands and dragged me to the front of the classroom. From her desk drawer, she pulled out a leather strap I'd never seen before. It was thick, worn smooth from use, with metal studs along its length. "Hold out the devil's hand." I started to cry then. Not the quiet tears of an embarrassed child, but deep, body-shaking sobs of pure terror. "Please, sister, I forgot. I didn't mean to." "The devil never means to," she said coldly. "That's what makes him so dangerous." She brought that strap down across my palm with such force that I screamed. Not a yelp or a cry, but a scream that seemed to tear from the very center of my soul. The metal studs opened cuts across my palm that bled onto the classroom floor. Again, and again, and again. By the 5th strike, I couldn't feel my hand anymore. By the 10th, I'd wet myself. By the 15th, I'd collapsed to my knees. "Let this be a lesson to all of you," she said, not even breathing hard. "The devil's influence must be beaten out completely, or it will spread like a cancer." She sent me to the nurse with a note that said I'd injured myself during recess. The nurse, Mrs. Henderson, took one look at my mangled hand, and her face went white. "Who did this to you?" she whispered. But I couldn't tell her. The fear was too deep, too complete. For weeks, I couldn't write at all. My left hand was bandaged and useless, my right hand still clumsy and unpracticed. Sister Mary Catherine showed no mercy. If I couldn't complete my assignments, I failed them. My grades plummeted. My parents were called in for conferences about my sudden academic decline and behavioral problems. "Robert has become defiant and unfocused," Sister Mary Catherine told them, her voice dripping with false concern. "Perhaps he needs more discipline at home." That night, my father took off his belt for the first time in my life. As the leather whistled through the air, I thought about telling him everything. But Sister Mary Catherine's words echoed in my head. Children who tattle about their righteous punishment will find themselves in even more trouble with the Lord. So I took the beating in silence, just like I'd learned to take everything else. The psychological torture was almost worse than the physical pain. Sister Mary Catherine would call on me to read aloud, knowing my damaged hand made it difficult to hold the book steady. She'd ask me to write equations on the blackboard, then criticize my shaky penmanship in front of the entire class. Perhaps if Robert had listened to God's guidance from the beginning, he wouldn't struggle so much now, she'd say with that cold smile. I started having nightmares. I'd wake up screaming, my left hand clenched in a fist, phantom ruler strikes burning across my knuckles. My mother would sit on my bed, stroking my hair, begging me to tell her what was wrong. "Nothing, Mama," I'd whisper. "Just bad dreams." But they weren't just dreams. They were memories that replayed every time I closed my eyes. The breaking point came in February of 1955. I was in the bathroom during recess when Jimmy Morrison, one of the older boys, cornered me. "My mom says left-handed kids are cursed," he said, shoving me against the wall. "She says you're going to burn in hell." "That's not true," I protested weakly. "Sister Mary Catherine says so, and nuns don't lie." He grabbed my left hand and bent my fingers backward until I screamed. "Maybe if we break it properly, God will fix you." I heard the crack before I felt the pain. My middle finger snapped like a dry twig. This time, even Sister Mary Catherine couldn't explain away the injury. My parents rushed me to the hospital, where the doctor asked pointed questions about how an 8-year-old breaks his finger falling downstairs. But I stuck to the story. Even through the pain, even through my mother's tears, I couldn't bring myself to tell the truth. The fear was too deeply ingrained. They put my finger in a splint, and for 6 weeks, I couldn't use my left hand at all. Sister Mary Catherine seemed pleased by this development. "Perhaps God is showing you the way," she said during our next penmanship lesson. "Perhaps He's removing the temptation for you." By the time I graduated from St. Margaret's in 1958, I was thoroughly broken. I could write with my right hand, awkwardly, painfully, but adequately. I could throw a ball right-handed, though I never had any power behind it. I could eat with my right hand, though food still felt foreign in that grip. But late at night, when no one was watching, my left hand would remember. It would trace letters in the air, form words with a grace my right hand never possessed. It was like part of my soul had been amputated, and phantom limb syndrome had set in. I never spoke about what happened at St. Margaret's. Not to my parents, not to my wife when I married, not to my children when they were born. It was a wound too deep to expose to daylight. I went to college, became an accountant, raised 3 beautiful children. I lived what anyone would call a successful life. But I was always careful about my hands. I trained myself so completely that most people never noticed the small inconsistencies. The way I'd instinctively reach with my left hand before correcting myself. The way I could shuffle cards with my left hand but wrote with my right. My wife Sarah noticed, of course. Wives always notice. "You're ambidextrous," she said one evening, watching me deal poker hands for our bridge group with my left hand. "Just a quirk," I replied, switching the cards to my right hand mid-deal. She gave me a look that said she knew there was more to the story, but she never pushed. Sarah was good that way. Years passed. Decades. I thought I'd buried the memories deep enough that they'd never resurface. I thought I'd moved on. Then, in 2019, I was reading the obituaries, something you do more frequently at my age, when I saw her name. Sister Mary Catherine Mueller, 91, died peacefully at St. Agnes Retirement Home, surrounded by her religious community. She had devoted 65 years to Catholic education, touching the lives of countless children with her dedication and guidance. I stared at that obituary for a full 5 minutes, waiting for something to happen. Waiting for tears, for relief, for closure, for rage. Something. Nothing came. I felt empty, hollow, like looking into a grave and finding it already filled with dirt. Sarah found me sitting there with a newspaper in my lap. "Someone you knew?" she asked gently. "A teacher," I said, "from when I was 8. She sat down beside me, her hand resting on my shoulder. "Must have been special to affect you this much." I almost laughed. Special. Yes, Sister Mary Catherine had been special, all right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the other children who'd sat in those desks, who'd felt that ruler across their knuckles, who'd learned to fear their own natural instincts. How many other left-handed kids had she corrected? How many other 8-year-olds had she convinced they were marked by the devil? The obituary mentioned a memorial service. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the Catholic Education Foundation. The Catholic Education Foundation. So other children could experience Sister Mary Catherine's dedication and guidance. I started laughing then. Bitter, broken laughter that turned into sobs that shook my whole body. Sarah held me while I cried for the first time in 70 years. Not for Sister Mary Catherine, but for that 8-year-old boy who'd learned to hate part of himself. For the child who'd been taught that his natural instincts were evil. For all the left-handed children who'd come before me and after me, who'd learned to hide their true selves to avoid punishment. For the parts of ourselves we sacrifice to fit into other people's definitions of righteousness. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I picked up a pen with my left hand and wrote my name. Robert McCarthy. My real signature, the one Sister Mary Catherine had tried to beat out of me 70 years ago. My handwriting was shaky. 70 years of disuse will do that, but it was mine. Truly mine. I didn't go to her memorial service. I didn't send flowers or make a donation. I didn't mourn her passing or celebrate it. but I did write a letter to the Catholic Education Foundation. In my natural left-handed script, I told them about St. Margaret's School in 1954, about wooden rulers and leather straps and children kneeling on corn kernels, about 8-year-olds taught to fear their own hands. I don't know if they read it. I don't know if they cared. But I wrote it with my left hand, and that was enough. People ask me sometimes why I still write with my right hand for most things, why I haven't switched back completely. The truth is, Sister Mary Catherine succeeded in one way. She rewired my brain so thoroughly that even now, at 78, my right hand feels correct for formal writing, even though it still feels foreign. But late at night, when I'm alone with my thoughts, I practice writing with my left hand. I write letters to my younger self, telling,